Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp, and today's video for you is about some of the most addictive games we have found on the Nintendo Switch. Now when I say the word addictive in terms of video games, I'm talking about games that I return to little and often. Some people, they might interpret it differently. It might be a game that's 90 hours long that they devoured over a weekend, but for me, that's not even possible, is it? 90 hours in a weekend? A week, I should say a week, shouldn't I? Not a weekend, what am I thinking? But for me, it's that idea of just a game that you turn off and then an hour later you think, I quite fancy another go at that. And that's what I'm going for when I talk about addictive games. I think Mark's interpretation is slightly different. He'll talk about that in a minute, I'm sure. Anyway, let's get on with the list.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Glen's assessment of what makes an addictive game, except mine's not little and often, it's lots and often, yeah? So there you go. And the first one of those, and I think everyone will agree in the comments, let's get it out the way nice and quick, and it's Hades. It comes from Supergiant Games. I'm not sure there's that many people that haven't played it yet, but if you're one of them, essentially it's a top-down roguelike game that's very action-heavy. There's a number of different weapons that you can choose from. Each of them plays very differently, but as you go through your different runs, perishing as you shall, you're given more of the story exposition after each death, and it's really interesting because characters remember individual weapons that you took into battle with them previously, or builds that you'd chosen. They'll also remark on the number of kills that you had. So yeah, overall just an excellently designed and crafted game that plays out so well and is hugely addictive.
My first pick is a game that came out quite early in the Switch's life. This is a game called Graceful Explosion Machine. Now this is a shoot 'em up, but it's slightly different. You don't go through levels per se. Instead you are in a fixed area, and if you go all the way to the right you end up back on the left again, if you know what I mean. You have a set amount of enemies that you need to kill, and you have a few different moves or weapons that you can use to do this, but they are all tied to an energy bar, and you can run out of energy and therefore not be able to use the move, leaving you very susceptible to the enemies getting you. The way to play it properly is to know when to use each of the weapons and to build up those lovely combos that give you a high score, and this is where the addictive part comes in, replaying levels to try and get as high a score as possible. And it's again one that maybe has been buried under so many releases since, but it's very much worth seeking out.
Next up for me, and this is probably the exception rather than the rule, and it's Immortals Phoenix Rising. Now I personally would never usually class this style of game as an addictive game, but the way Ubisoft work is they create games that are filled with so many small and enjoyable little loops that you can go through. So for example, you think about something like Zelda where you'd go and you'd get addicted to finishing all the shrines. Ubisoft's world is rammed full of enjoyable little side activities, and I found myself just going off the beaten path and I was completely addicted to just doing all of the side missions. Things like races through the area, finding all the side stories. Yeah, I found it very compulsive and certainly far more addictive than I imagined it would be.
My next one then, a bigger game than a lot of the others on the list. This is Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now this has that same quality of little and often for me, whereby I'll play it, turn it on, I don't know, pull up some weeds, go fishing, something like that, turn it off, and then about an hour later feel like I want to go back and just do that little bit more, whatever that may be for that particular day. It's very rare that I would class a first-party Nintendo game as addictive. As much as I enjoy them, I don't feel that I need to go back to a Mario or a Zelda game. I just enjoy them when I'm playing them. But this is definitely a game in their catalogue that does that for me, and it does it incredibly well.
It seems like a lot of these addictive games are roguelite in nature, and Everspace is no different. It takes space-based combat, again a bit like Freelancer in some aspects. You can get new ships, upgrade the weapons on them, but it incorporates the compulsive storytelling from something like Hades, whereby every time you die, more of the story plays out. so you don't feel like there's no reason to try again. The combat itself is also very, very good. It was a shame that they didn't include gyroscopic controls on this one, to be honest, and I did speak to the developer, but they said it was too imprecise. I'm not sure how true that is. Either way, if you do play it, switch to the control option 3 because it makes a massive difference to how easy it is to do barrel rolls and things like that. After something like Galaxy on Fire 2 back in the day, this is, I guess, the nearest you're going to get to that on Switch.
My next pick then, perhaps an unconventional one, it's Horizon Chase Turbo. Now I could never have seen myself putting a racing game on a list of addictive games, I must be honest. Again, I enjoy them very much so, but I don't see them as addictive. But this game changed all that, and it's down to those time trials, trying to shave hundredths of a second off of your score, especially when you go online and see the online leaderboards or your friends lists and see how your friends are getting on. Now the game itself is fantastic fun irrespective of that. It uses a lovely low poly art style, quite possibly my favourite racer on the Switch, and there are some heavy hitters on the Switch these days to be fair, but it's that time trial nature of trying to play again and get your best scores that does it for me, and I found it incredibly addictive.
I recently reviewed a game called Rhythm Fighter, and it was a massive surprise. It takes elements of things like Parappa the Rapper from back in the day and then blends them with a side-scrolling beat-em-up with roguelite elements. You have a number of different characters to choose from. The aim of the game is very similar to something like Isaac, where you work your way through floors, except it's different worlds, and at the end of each world you'll have a boss fight. It has a really interesting control scheme, which is split over the right and left-hand sides of the controller and works really well. It's a great game, and a really surprising one, and I'd recommend you check out our full review. Links will be down in the description.
These last two for me are possibly the most addictive games I have on the Switch, and they're not necessarily the ones you would expect. The first of those is Bad North. Now this game sees you trying to defend your land. It has a Viking setting as you have a different number of classes such as Swordman or Pikeman, and will have to survive a number of raids. If you die you do have to start again. It does have that roguelite element, but in some games for some reason it just doesn't seem as harsh or frustrating as in others. And in this one I could die and start again with absolutely no qualms. As you move along the map you will see that sometimes there is a power up or another clan that you can try and invite to join you, but it may be just off course, which means the enemy catches you up, and it makes the game that bit more difficult, so it has that risk and reward element to it as well, and it is a whole lot of fun.
The most addictive game that I've played on Switch, or any other platform for that matter, is Rocket League. I've put in now 1,362 hours, which is a bit embarrassing to say, in all honesty, but they've also made it free. So if you want to try this one out, you can do so free of charge. You just download it. It's a sports game whereby you control different vehicles. You play in solos or in a duo team, or with up to 3 players, and you have to score goals in a net. It's as simple as that. The physics are excellent. It's so addictive when you get good at it. And I must say, there's a good chance you'll play this and say, nah, it's not for me, because when you go on there now, players are good. Even in the lower ranks, the players on there are really quite good. So it's a bit of a time investment just getting good enough to compete. But when you get there and you're doing aerial flips, dribbling the ball through the sky while your teammate spins around trying to figure out his accelerator, it's certainly a pleasure. What a game.
Okay, my last pick then, and I do know what Mark's is, and I love how different our choices are. It really does show, I think, why the channel works, because mine is Pang Adventures, and as deep and as much time as you have to put into Mark's number one to get there, this is as simple as they come, yet incredibly addictive. Now Pang is a game as old as time, and you have to try and pop balloons, and each big balloon will then become 2 smaller ones, and so on. Of course, this simple concept racks up in difficulty as you go along, and this particular version has a mode called Panic Mode, which is available in co-op, and it is unbelievable fun. the screen becomes crazy with the amount of balloons and other things that come along, and you need to try and get to level 99 on the limited amount of lives you have, and it does have online leaderboards, and again, because of that, you'll just keep trying. Now, this particular version of Pang went for a more hand-drawn art style in terms of the characters and used photograph images for the background. I'll be honest, I would have preferred a straight up pixel look, but look past that, just look at the gameplay, and this is so much fun. Definitely worth picking up.
Glen and I actually recorded this list a couple of months ago, and since then, a certain game has released, Monster Hunter Rise, and we have been totally hooked on it. It's pretty much everything we wanted the game to be, and I know so many of you have got into it. Loads of you have found it quite easy to get into, but some of you have struggled, and some of the comments I've heard are things like, there's too much text to read, and in all honesty, I don't read any of the text. I skip through it and I do the fights. Another very common complaint is just feeling completely overwhelmed. And again, I say to you, jump onto our Discord channel. The link's in the description. There's tons of people on there who will guide you through it, and you can hook up with some different players. And actually, there's a channel on YouTube, I forget the name of it, but the guy essentially used to pan Monster Hunter all the time. And now his channel is Monster Hunter, where he got into it, he took the time to learn the game, and he absolutely loves it. And for everyone that I know that's actually put the time in, it's rewarded them with amazing gameplay, and it's stupidly addictive. So this is our late entry, and for me personally is my current most addictive game on the Nintendo Switch. So sorry past me with Rocket League, future you has found something even better. Excellent stuff. So hopefully you've enjoyed this list, and it's certainly a varied one, and it will give you some more options to add to that ever-growing backlog. If you enjoyed the channel, then please do consider sticking around. Remember, we give away a free Nintendo Switch game each and every month to the subscriber most active. Thanks to our patrons who support the channel, and I believe we've had a couple of new ones, so that all those names will be at the end of this video. Check us out on Discord if you haven't done so already, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!